Well, we're on the final scenario from Almeida and Busaco, the Jours de Gloire game from the Peninsular Campaign. This is Coimbra or Coimbra. I'm pretty good with French, but my Spanish and Portuguese is not so good. So someone should let me know how to pronounce that. I think it's probably Coimbra, right? In any case, this took place on the 1st of October, 1810, so not too long after the Battle of Busaco. It's a very small scenario. We've only got two formations per side, and it's a six-turn game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, six-turn game. And it's really interesting. I suspect this will be a British victory, but we'll see how it goes. So essentially what we have here is this uncrossable river here, the Mondego. It can only be crossed at this bridge or at this ford here. We've got a formation of British infantry in and around the town of Coimbra. And then we've got these civilian markers, which are essentially they move 2 hexes and they activate when a specific chit is pulled from the cup. There's only one of those chits in the cup, so it's possible they don't activate at all. But they're allowed to move 2 hexes. They can't stack. They can't stack with units. They can move 3 units. And then the other thing about them is that they're worth victory points to both sides. So the British, I guess, are trying to evacuate the town as the French approach, and they want to get them to the other side of the river. And at the end of the game, if the British can have all 5 of the units without having any of them killed on this side of the river, they will score 2 points per marker. If any of them are eliminated, they don't score any points. So they've got to get them out of there. We have got Stapleton here with a cavalry division, some really light cavalry, it actually turns out, and some artillery. And then we've got Saint Croix, who in French would be Saint Croix, but I'm just going to say Saint Croix because I don't want to do the accent every time, coming down this road through this swamp. So essentially what the French are trying to do is they're trying to break through the British defense. They're trying to get over here and, I guess, kill or kidnap the civilians. I've never seen I haven't played a war game scenario where the civilian population plays such a huge role. So this is kind of a first. And I'd have to read up on the history of what happened here, but that's kind of the objective, is to get over here. If the French get next to one of these civilian markers, they just eliminate them. So we've got this cavalry coming down here, and then we've also got some reinforcements coming in on the third turn of the game, where the French are going to be coming down this road here. And as you can see, it's going to be basically one formation against the other. Now, the command is such in this game that there's only one commander per side, and they can each only put one formation into full command each turn. So we may get a little bit of a stalemate going on, but that is going to force the British to respond. Now, at the end of the game, there are going to be victory points for a couple of things. So at the end of the game, the French player will score 3 victory points per civilian marker they remove from the game. They'll score 2 victory points for each British cavalry unit that is on the south side of the river, so forcing them back. They'll score 4 victory points for every other unit that is in front of the river. So the British do not want to end the scenario on the north side of the river. And then the French will score 3 victory points if they can get their own units for each one. Per turn, actually. They'll get 3 victory points per turn in which a French unit is across the river. So this is it's feeling a little bit like Almeida, although it's a little bit more even, it appears, in terms of troop quality. And then the Anglo-Portuguese, again, will get 5 points per marker if they can get them all to rescue south of the river. And then if the one artillery unit up there on the left flank is in good order and is located south of the river at the end of the game, that's another 2 victory points. And then the British can score 2 victory points at the end of each turn in which all French units on the map are disordered or routed. So interestingly, the British, while in a defensive position, are incentivized to attack the French and try and keep them away from the town and the civilians. The British do have the strategic initiative on turn 1. I've selected this formation down here. It's Crawford's units, but I'm not sure if it actually represents Crawford. Anyways, so there's some interesting choices to be made here. They can move half movement points, and I definitely want to get them into a defensive position to stop the reinforcements here or potentially support the cavalry if that all starts to go wrong. But if I want a full activation, I'm going to have to roll for it, and it's 50-50. So there should be some interesting unexpected events happening here. The chip pull probably looks like it's going to be really... it's going to affect the flow of the game pretty heavily. And we should blast through this one real fast. Looks like a little more interesting than Almeida. Oh, the other thing I should mention is if your artillery is shooting at a target in swamp, it gets a +2 on its roll. So yeah, this cavalry here under St. Croix is probably going to face some intense fire when that chit gets drawn. I don't think you can charge through swamp. Let's double check that. Marsh. Yeah, no charging. So it's going to be a lot of cavalry on cavalry action, at least in the early game, and then we might see the infantry come up. I'm curious how that's going to go, because cavalry with attacking without charging get a -2 on their combat roll. So I guess we're about to find out. All right, well, St. Croix got the initiative from the chit pull, and he decided to move forward and attack the wings here of Stapleton's cavalry. We want to drive off this artillery. The first thing that happens is, so first of all, none of them can charge. Well, one of them did try and charge. This one here, the 9th and 26th Dragoons, did try and charge these Hussars, but the Hussars countercharged, so we're not going to get the bonus for that. But the first thing that happens, I'm going to resolve this one first, because Ross's artillery are going to get to fire, and the one thing I look at here is, can you stack 2 cavalry units together? I believe you can. Yes. Okay, so artillery. We're not in a swamp. We got out of that swamp as fast as we could. So the artillery, Ross, is adding 2, plus there's adjacent, so that becomes 3. And then I believe because there's 2 units stacked together, that's another +1, so it's going to be 4 for massed targets. Yeah, so +4, this could go badly. Let's see. No, that is a miss. So we resolve the combat. We've got 4 strength points there against 2 strength points there. So that's 2 to 1, so +2 on the dice, plus the difference in the morale value there. So that's +3. We're in clear terrain, that's +4. It was a pretty good attack. And then because we're cavalry without charging, we're -2. So we're +2 on the dice. Let's see what happens. We did roll a 6, which is just enough to cause a retreat and a cohesion check. And the cohesion check was a 4, so we're just going to, let's back up this way. And so the first Dragoons passed. Now, because the artillery went with them, the artillery has to make a cohesion test. And they passed it. Okay, so first combat. And then the next thing that happens is the unit with the highest efficiency or morale rating moves forward. And advances into the hex, which actually was this hex here. So there we go. First combat down. The French cavalry driving off Stapleton's artillery, at least temporarily. All right, so something I'm a little unclear on in the rules because it's not actually spelled out very well. So as you remember, the 9th and 26th Dragoons charged the Hussars countercharged, so we didn't get the charge bonus on the attack, but we did drive the unit out of the hex, and the combat result was such that normally I would be allowed a pursuit with the cavalry, and in fact I must pursue with the cavalry if I get that result. But I'm unclear whether that pursuit takes place if a countercharge was successful. So it doesn't actually, that is like the one missing part in the charge rules that I can't quite figure out. So we didn't get the bonus for the charge, so I didn't count it as a charge, and then we forced the retreat and took ground, and the result was a pursuit, but the pursuit rules don't specify if it's just the bonus you lose on the attack or if the whole charge sequence is aborted. I'm going to make a house rule here and say that because there was a countercharge, it blunted the attack and there was not an opportunity for pursuit, and in fact the countercharge and the retreat kind of covered that initial charge. But if you play Jours de Gloire and you know the answer to that, I would love to know exactly what the ruling is in that situation. All right, well, the British tried a counterattack while they were engaged, and it did not go well whatsoever. Disordered all of the attackers and actually routed Stapleton's unit. So it's all gone very badly, very quickly. Maybe I should have been a little more circumspect with the British, but it was a pretty good attack. It's just the French cavalry quality there on those 4th and 14th Dragoons is quite high. So we're probably going to try and disengage on this next turn. Hopefully we can get an initiative and a favorable chit draw, if not. Well, Stapleton's cavalry is collapsing like a house of cards. We got another rout from the attack here. The artillery was driven back. It passed its morale test, but now, or its cohesion test, but now, given the breakthrough result on that roll, this cavalry is going to eliminate this artillery after it makes the attack because the artillery has already done its reaction fire, and when artillery is attacked alone, it's just eliminated. So French, off to a great start. Can we go 3-0 in Almeida and Busaka with French victories and scenarios? All right, end of the second turn of the game. Stapleton's cavalry in full rout. We did manage to rally one of them, and actually I should change its facing when it rallies. That one there, the 16th Light Dragoons managed to rally. This whole sequence of events, it was just because St. Croix ended up getting the first chip pull on the first turn. Had the British got it first, I think it might have been a much different story because they could have attacked and potentially driven the French off. So we're into a bad situation now. We failed on a full activation for the British infantry in this turn. We're going to get some French infantry coming down this road. I'm trying to figure out where I want to take up a defensive position for that. It's difficult because if the cavalry want to wheel around and hit me in the flank, they can. There's some streams here. I might want to park an infantry unit here between the elbows of this stream and this woods. That would make it very difficult. We definitely want to hold one back across this ford because if the French cross, they're going to get victory points. So the civilians are making their way out of the town. We're probably going to hide them up on this hill here, and I don't want to get too far forward. The French, it's only a couple of units of French infantry, but I don't want to get too far forward, and then suddenly I have no support. So I want to keep them tight in a formation with maybe one rear guard and try and rally this cav. End of turn 3, we see the British units eliminated. That's real nasty. The French cavalry is rolling amazingly well right now. St. Croix came down, just wiped out the units that were routing, essentially. We did get a couple activations, one of a failed one for the infantry, but then we just took a half activation to just get into a position to stop the advance, to stop the bleeding, and that's where we ended up. We did not get a civilian activation that turn, which is unfortunate. And we've got Stapleton down here with some cavalry, and we've got some other cavalry here who have rallied on the south side of the river. The French are going to want to push this ford, I'm thinking. That's going to be maybe the best way in, or maybe the cavalry can swing around through Coimbra. But Clausel's getting another activation marker in the cup this turn, so he's going to make his way down the road, and it's ugly. Okay, finish the second to last turn of this scenario. Again, St. Croix, he slowed down a little bit. The infantry managed to form a line here across this road. There's a stream in between these two units. Neither side wanted to attack. And then we had part of his cavalry come up this hill and rout Stapleton again, but some of the infantry followed, and in the, it was crazy because in the disengagement from this infantry, he rolled a cohesion test, and the only thing he couldn't roll was a 9, and he rolled a 9, and so that disordered him, so that's going to be problematic from where he is and what the infantry are doing. Of course, this is its own tactical group now, so it's not going to be in full command unless Stapleton wants to make it in full command, which I might consider doing given that these guys are just playing a defensive role, but we did manage to rally those guys. It's getting time for me to think about getting back across the river so I can score those points at the end of the game. We really got to get this guy rallied and maybe across the bridge. So French, full court press. They got 2 turns with which to win the scenario. Well, the British have turned it around. Wow. On the last activation here of Crawford, or of the infantry, I'm not sure if it's Crawford, we put the hurt on Clausel. So the units moved in. We passed our melee check since these two guys were out of command. It was this guy who was in command. We succeeded. This guy attacked. We drove off this cavalry. Then we made an attack here, routed one of the units, breakthrough, attack again, routed the other one of the units. So now, and then the other thing of consequence that happened is actually that St. Croix's cavalry was going to actually, before that all happened, he was going to charge out of these woods against the flank of one of these units, and he failed on the charge check, the charge reluctance check. So the cavalry's just sitting around watching their infantry evaporate, and yeah, this is going to be an interesting final turn. The points, I think, are pretty close given the casualties that we have here. And the English are most definitely going to score 10. It's really going to come down to whether or not the French can cross the ford, I think, is going to decide, I think, the game based on my quick mental math. So here we go. Well, would you believe it? But the French won a victory here despite the outcome. And it's all because of this stupid cavalry unit who could not rally himself over multiple turns and prevented the British from scoring the civilian evacuations. Every unit had to get across along with all the civilians and the commander, which everyone did except he could not rally, and so he couldn't move on the activation that he got. And this formation, he couldn't rally either, which meant there's only one formation marker in the cup on the final turn. It's just the failure of this cavalry to rally ended up costing the British the game. The final score, 11-2. 2 because there's 2 routed French units. 11 because we've got 2, 4, 6. Got a 7 there, and then I think the demoralized formation counts as 4 as well. Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough scenario for the British, I feel like. They have to do a lot with very little. And, I mean, they're positionally sound, but the objective, I guess, not met. Yeah, 4 victory points for the French for each unit on the north side of the river. So because this unit couldn't rally and he couldn't move, all he had to do was walk across the bridge. But yeah, that's a French victory for you. So 3-0 in Almeida and Busaco. This is a fun scenario, actually. I think it's really interesting. It's actually a really good scenario to learn this system because there's so few units and you get kind of a mix of everything. You get to learn about cavalry charges, you get to learn about squares, you get the combat system down. The terrain's not too bad. There's very little reinforcements and the rallying, how important that is. So if you're trying to, if you own this game, you haven't played Jours de Gloire, I actually think even though this is the latest in the chronologically in the 3 that come in this game, I think this one's actually the best learning game. And it's actually really fun. I mean, I played it in less than an hour. So this is one that you could set up and play over and over and try some different strategies without being like committed to a long game like maybe Busaco was. But I thoroughly enjoyed this. I think Busaco and Coimbra are some of the 5 scenarios I played in this system. These definitely are in the top 3 along with Rivoli from early glories. So yeah, that is my look at, I'll show you. I can get the thing. That is my look at the 3 scenarios in Almeida and Busaco 1810 from the Peninsular Campaign, published by Hexasim in the Jours de Gloire series designed by Frederick Bay. Yeah, thanks for watching this. Let me know what you think. If you want to see some more Jours de Gloire, let me know. God knows I have enough scenarios sitting on the shelf that I could play this game for a long, long time. I am going to take a break from this and do something a little different now, probably. 3 battle games in a row, especially a long one, I kind of want something a little more operationally flavored, and I've got just the ticket for that. So we're going to move forward over 100 years and play something that is been on my curiosity list for a while and might be familiar to some of you from some of the other games I played on this channel. So I'll see you when I do that one.